Hello! So today we are plastering this rather large ceiling. This is an overboard, so we have gone over, it's a converted converted flats, and the ceiling was in quite bad condition. It's very uneven and lumpy bumpy, and that is the reason we have applied fibre tape over all the screws. You don't always need to. You would apply scrim or fibre tape over all the joins on the plasterboard ceiling, but because the joists and the general ceiling was so lumpy bumpy, we've had to use extra screws to secure the ceiling in position. And just to be on the safe side, we've added reinforcement mesh over the screws, as the centres, the joists spanned at about 600 centres, which is a little bit wider than they are built these days. The property was built, I believe, in the early 70s, whereas it's much more common for 400 centres to be used now. I believe if you have 600 centres between the joists, you would need 15 mil thick plasterboard as a minimum, which this one definitely did not have. But as a result, the ceiling wasn't very flat and needed some extra screws to help support it, which is why we've had all the scrim. And also, going over all the scrim first with the plaster will help add an extra bit of thickness and strength over all of your areas where the scrim is, as well as giving you extra coverage to ensure that none of the fibre tape from the scrim or the screws show through the plaster. You see Christian's there on his hop up, and I've got my stilts, which I find very useful. I believe this ceiling is about 20 square metres, but because it is quite an uneven ceiling, it's going on quite thick and using a bit more gear than you would on a nice flat ceiling. Each bag of plaster, each 25 kilogram bag of plaster will do normally 10 square metres. However, I believe this one was about 2.5 bags of plaster. I've done the whole thing in real time, just the first coat. Once you have finished the first coat, you will let that coat firm up. So depending on the size, it can be anywhere from 5 minutes to, if it's a particularly cold day, you might be waiting 25-30 minutes between the first coat and then applying the second coat. Once the first coat has firmed in, you want to then flatten it with your trowel before then applying the second coat over the top. And then it's the same process. Once the second coat's been applied, wait for it to firm up again, which can be anywhere from, again, 5 minutes to 30 minutes, depending on the temperature. And then once it has firmed up, you will then be able to flatten it. It will then want a wet trowel, another break, then a second wet trowel, another gap as well for it to get tight, and each gap allows it to just firm up a bit more. It's getting harder and harder. Once you've added the water to the plaster mix, it starts a chemical reaction with the plaster, and that plaster after about 2-3 hours will be rock hard, and it's during that time your job is to get it lovely flat and smooth, and you can achieve this by giving it these trails. But if you were to trail it too much, it can cause the plaster to go wavy. You can get what's known as tiger stripes. The pattern, if you were skimming over Artex, can bleed through. All these are avoidable by a little bit of patience and letting each coat tighten in and not going over it too soon, or being a bit too eager and plastering over the ceiling too often. And that is one lovely finished plastered ceiling. We've put the light fixings back. You'll notice on this one the coving was removed, and we have repaired all along the ceiling lines where the coving is removed. Thanks for watching.